All miners have surfaced from underground at the Gold One mine in Springs in the east of Johannesburg. Mine workers have been underground for over 2 days since Sunday for their shift. This morning, over 100 came out and were rushed to hospitals for medical attention.
All 463 employees who were, as you said, either sitting in or being forced to stay underground have been brought to surface. They have been assessed by our medical people. They've been given, energy drinks and that sort of thing. Four employees were injured. They had been assaulted. 2 of them were brought out on stretchers. Fortunately, nobody was in a critical condition, but they have been hospitalised at various hospitals around Springs. The rest of the people were assessed for various minor conditions. Most of them are obviously suffering from mainly from hunger and stress and exhaustion. But everybody is out and everybody has now gone home.
All right, Michael Bagraim, member of the Portfolio Committee on Employment and Labour, joins us now for a conversation. A very good evening to you, sir. Thank you so much for joining us here on SABC News.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for having me on air. I appreciate it.
You're most welcome. Watching these events that have been unfolding at Gold One Mine, how should this situation, have been handled from inception? I mean, I do suspect that there's been, some mishandling of the situation, whether it's, by government, by labour authorities, by the, employer. I mean, where have we gone wrong and how should it have been handled?
We've gone very wrong. First of all, we don't even know what the situation is now. After the event, we don't know if people were forced to stay, if they were having a sit-in. There are 3 different stories. We're hearing a story from NUM, we're hearing a story from UMCU, we're hearing a story from the employers, and somehow governments failed everyone. We should have learned our lesson at Marikana, where UMCU, unfortunately, were involved as well. What we've got is we've got a standoff between 2 unions, where NUM have the majority, or so they say. They're the ones that are recognized by the employer. And then you've got UMCU, which is supposedly the new kid on the block there. And from what we're hearing from UMCU, and I don't know if you can believe it, but what we're hearing from UMCU is that the majority have joined UMCU and don't want NUM anymore. But what we're hearing from the employer is that people were forced to stay there and they were hostages. Now, one would have expected the police to have acted more professionally in the situation. And quite frankly, I also blame the employer because they have a duty of care. These people were in a mine owned by the employer on duty, and we don't have much movement from the employer. We would have expected them to come out and make statements, to negotiate with the unions, and to get things done. I mean, this has taken days. Not a few hours. If it was a strike, if people were voluntarily there, then we need to actually take disciplinary action because it was an illegal strike and people have been injured and people are basically traumatized. This is going to take months for these people to come right. It doesn't happen in a minute.
I mean, like you say, it is actually quite a bizarre situation. What do you believe to be the most likely scenario in this all? I mean, I've been watching some of the video clips of, some of the employees talking. I mean, I saw one particularly bizarre clip of a gentleman saying, I was in there and had I known that we're going to be there that long, I would have actually brought more lunch from home. Those kinds of things. What do you believe to be the actual scenario? I mean, you've painted a few pictures for us of what we've been told. And certainly, I mean, I agree with you. These are some of the stories that we've been told. But in your minds, what do you believe as a member of the Portfolio Committee on Employment and Labour to be the actual probable situation?
Yeah, I can only say probable because I don't have facts. And I'm a labor lawyer and I deal with unions all day, and I actually think they were forced to stay. I think they were hostages. Why would they voluntarily stay underground? They apparently have run out of food. They apparently were quite traumatized. People have come out there. Some had to be hospitalized. That doesn't sound like a voluntarily called sit-in. It doesn't sound right. And then we have stories where people manage to escape through the back route. Why do they have to escape if they're voluntarily sitting there? So they were hostages in my mind. And again, I'm surmising, and as a labor lawyer that deals with strikes often, I think this was a standoff between two unions. And I also think that the employer stood back, not wanting to get too involved, knowing that their hands will get dirty if they get involved either way. And, you know, an employer in South African law has a duty of care to their employees.
Yeah.
Regardless of what's happening, they have that duty of care. I'm hoping that the compensation fund have a proper investigation. I trust that our dysfunctional Department of Employment and Labour will get a proper investigation going. Because when we had Marikana, we said never again. And this was very close, very close. And we can't afford it in South Africa. We can't afford to have a standoff of this nature.
Exactly.
It's absolutely ridiculous. In 2023, we've gone. Yeah, sorry.
I want to talk more on this closed shop agreement. And you know, I'd really like to hear it from you as a labor lawyer, you know, and as a specialist in this particular field. The fact that, you know, only NUM, as you said, is recognized as the union by the mine management, it seems to have, you know, come to haunt them. From a legal perspective, from a labor law perspective, what exactly is, you know, the stance on the issue of this closed shop agreement like this that we now see?
Well, the closed shop agreement, I think, has been abused by the employer at this stage. The closed shop means that we're dealing with one union and we're not going to allow any newcomers. And that's always been a problem in South Africa. Our labor laws need to have a complete rehash because the employer, I think, has got into a cozy relationship with NUM. And that cozy relationship seems to be somehow barring any other union to step in. It doesn't stop employees belonging to both. Closed shop means they have to belong to the NUM, but they can actually join another union in law. They can join another union. And then once that other union gets to a situation where they can claim majority, they can then start attacking the agreement. Quite frankly, I think UMCU should have gone to the Labour Court. I don't think they should have got involved in a situation of this nature. It's all illegal. If it was a strike, it's an illegal strike, a wildcat strike. If it was a hostage situation, well, that clearly is illegal. That's criminal. And if it's a union fight between the two of them, they must sort that out in the courts, rather. We have some very good labor laws that can easily sort that one out. Why the CCMA didn't get involved, because they got a great team of negotiators. All we needed was, in terms of our law, our minister could have declared this to be a situation where he had to call in the CCMA, and he could have activated some of the best negotiators in the country to go in there. We've got all the tools. We've got the law, we've got the tools, but somehow government has failed us. Somehow the employer has failed us. When you've got two warring unions, you don't leave them up to their own devices. That's not the way we do things in labor law in South Africa.
And just to wrap up our discussion, Mr. Bagraim, there's been an accusation, I'm just trying to remember the name of the organization that was on one of our radio stations on our platforms this morning, accusing Goldwan Mine of actually breaking the law. And I hear you talking about illegalities, and I want to go into this. They actually accused Goldwan Mine of breaking the law by not recognizing other unions. Can we take it that far? Can we indeed say that, you know, laws were broken here?
I think so. I think we need to have a proper investigation. I think the minister has to get off his backside, I'm sorry to put it that way, the Minister of Employment and Labour, and actually get something done. We left this almost too late. There are two very sick people that have come out there. I think we're going to need psychologists to help the others that have now come out. We've sent them home. But this is going to traumatize people for a long time. And so there are a lot of players involved in this, and I think a lot of players have broken the law, and I think government has stood back. and done very little. They had police standing there outside doing nothing, but there's nothing a policeman can do when people down a mine shaft. What we needed was negotiators from the CCMA, and I have great faith in them, and they managed to put these things to bed very quickly. They could have come in and done it in 3 or 4 hours and got this sorted out. And if people want to have a fight afterwards, they can go and use the courts. They don't have to go and keep people hostage in a situation down a mine shaft. It's ridiculous. We're in a modern country in 2023. It is ridiculous that you hold people hostage. You see that in worse parts.
Let's leave it there. Thank you very much. It was a pleasure talking to you. That's Michael Bagraim, member of the Portfolio Committee on Employment and Labour there, talking to us about the situation, of course, in gold at Gold One mine.